Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today, we're going to be doing something different, something pretty fun. Yesterday, Wizards held a Ban and Restricted kind of methodology Twitch stream where they spoke about how they approach looking at the format, stuff of that nature. Through that, they had comments about Modern, and we should expect some bans to like the Evoke cycle, potentially, on December 4th. On December 4th as well, they did cover Pioneer, and we are likely going to be seeing some bans. They did hint at turn 3 combos where an opponent just casts one spell. So Discover potentially is on the chopping block. They also spoke briefly about Karn, so something to keep an eye on. And then they did speak about unbanning, and they did mention that we will be seeing an unban coming on December 4th. They didn't say how many, which cards. So I thought we'd speculate, kind of go over the deck list, and we have a tier list. YouTube loves tiers, Reddit loves tiers, hot takes, let's do it. But I wanted to try to apply like some logic or my perspective on what I think is reasonable to potentially look to unban and what should stay banned for as long as possible and where things fall in between. I welcome your perspective on this. Notably, these will impact Explorer as well for the MTG Arena community. So, safe to unban. I think Smuggler's Copter is probably the most likely that we are going to see unbanned. 2-mana vehicle that can kind of loot on attack, flying. It's a good card. It saw a lot of play in Standard. It was kind of an auto-include in all decks at that time, but it was a smaller card pool. Removal got a lot better. Fatal Push, there's a ton of different black removal spells. This does dodge Go for the Throat, which is nice, but lots of different ways black can remove it. Red has answers to 3 toughness. White has a bunch of answers. Blue has tempo plays, but I think giving just another efficient creature kind of looting effect while it dodges like sorcery speed removal could be relevant. It also could enable some like looting effects. It'd actually be interesting in like Greasefang. I'd wonder if they'd play it there, just a way to kind of put in like it helps with the loot effect, as well as it's a vehicle that could be reanimated that can then help bin the other copies. Interesting kind of concept. I think this is the safest to likely be unbanned. So next category is likely safe, and I'm gonna explain my thoughts on all of these. Field of the Dead is a very good card, and it's like I'm pretty sure it's banned in Modern, but that's Primeval Titan that gets multiple copies of it. In Standards time, it was with Teferi 3 fairy, and it used Scape Shift. The format, like, you can't play like slow tap line. You still have to get the 7 lands for it to start doing stuff. It's not like you could cheat on mana to get stuff out. There's a lot of decks, Convoke, Boros Heroic, the various aggressive style decks. There's turn 3 combo decks right now. Getting to 7 lands, you know what? You should be rewarded to doing so. It does add some redundancy in terms of like against control decks, stuff like that, but most of the blue-white control decks are playing Field of Ruin anyways for the creature lands. I think it's reasonable, provided that Teferi 3 stays unbanned. As long as you can't instant speed the Scape Shift, I think it's fine. There's not like a ton of haste enablers, that same deck. I'm on the perspective it's a fine card to include. Kethis is one, I think it's fine. And I'm kind of drawing my parallels to Historic where the card is legal. There are better cards in Historic than there are in Explorer, Delighted Halfling being the notable of them. So this is a combo deck. It is susceptible to Graveyard Hate. A bunch of different Graveyard Hates. It's susceptible to aggro. The one kind of improvement to this deck that from when it was banned is we have all the legendary channel lines, which can be used to enable Kethis as well. All in all, I think it's a very good deck in Historic. It's a rewarding deck. It's not an unbeatable deck, all things considered. So I think that's a reasonable one to maybe consider as well. Their kind of methodology was talking about turn 3 unfun combos. I think it's fine. There is an element of Kethis where they're going through the loop where you're kind of sitting there, so that might be the do they have it or not? But oftentimes, like especially with an experienced Kethis player, they can demonstrate the combo fairly quickly. And once they kind of generate the Jace loop, they pretty much won with infinite mana and then the Jace. Felidar Guardian is another one that's part of a combo deck, a Saheeli Ray, and Felidar Guardian blinks infinite times. It's the Saheeli Cat combo. There's a 2-card combo that has to be done on turn 4. It's susceptible to removal for both the Felidar Guardian or the Saheeli, counterspells. You have to hit 4 toughness, so it might be a little difficult main board for like a mono red deck, for example, but the cat gets hit by Rending Volley, that's uncounterable. Saheeli gets hit by Rending Volley, so there's a lot of ways that you can interact with the combo. I think like the kind of differentiation I like with combos, it's deterministic and it's instant the time you do it, right? Like, okay, I lose. It's not like, okay, I might not lose, or, I have to go through this iteration 700 times to actually kill you. We have stuff like Amalia combo, which is an infinite life gain combo, or like pseudo infinite. Doesn't even go like infinite. It could still be disrupted. They could still do everything, wipe the board, and have like a 22-22, and then just die to like fatal push. So it's not even like kill them on the spot type thing unless they have Dina. So I think this is fine. It usually plays in like a Jeskai kind of control shell. I think it's okay. Walking Ballista, I'm going to preface, I think this card is safe to unban, or at least likely safe, or more I just want to kind of play with it. But with Karn being banned. If Karn gets banned, we could look at this. If Karn doesn't get banned, then I don't think this kind of goes down the list, because the Devotion deck being able to tutor for Ballista the turn they go off, I think is too much value. If you just throw Ballista into Devotion without Karn, it's taking up mainboard slots, doesn't contribute to the actual Devotion plan until you're already ahead. I think it's fine as a win condition, but the tutorable element. Putting it in the deck, you also get, or into the format, you get the Heliod combo. So it's like an infinite damage, infinite life combo. That does require some setup. Again, the pieces could be interrupted with. You have ways to shut off life gain, Roiling Vortex for Ocidon, any sort of removal, stuff of that nature could kind of work in that regard. It also could see play in like the Scales archetype, which is kind of fringe right now. I think it could open up a lot of different kind of archetypes, counters, stuff of that nature. So it was a fun card when I was playing in Standard. Unban with Caution. So here, Expressive Iteration. Right now, the Phoenix deck is getting a lot of popularity. The Toronto RC, my local RC, had like 300 people plus play, and I think like at least 4 or 5 in the top 8 were like Phoenix decks. I think Expressive Iteration is a very powerful card, so I do think you need to proceed with caution. It's banned in some Eternal formats, just giving like Phoenix and a lot of these aggressive kind of decks. We do still have Treasure Cruise as kind of the card draw effect, so I'd proceed with caution there. The Inverter combo, so this is a combo with Inverter that you basically flip your deck and then win with Thassa's Oracle or Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. It's like a Dimir control combo deck. There is the Dimir deck that plays Gearhulk and is kind of just like slow Dimir control. It really depends on how many combo decks they want in the format. Like so far, if we look, like Kethis is a combo, Felidar is a combo, Ballista could be a combo, Inverter could potentially be a combo as well. It is kind of a 2-card. It's a little bit harder to interact with because it doesn't necessarily stop the removal. The Jace is a little bit tougher to deal with than some of the other cards. Thassa's Oracle trigger still goes on the stack, so you could still lose even if you kill the Thassa's Oracle if they have other devotions. So some considerations there I think is cautious. Leyline of Abundance, I think if Karn gets banned, depending on how neutered the devotion deck gets, maybe revisit it and then just play more of that. Like when Pioneer first came out, this was around and it was more just like pumping it up. We saw 4 mana Vivian in that deck, Nissa, just kind of more like build a board of creatures, put counters on. That might be an angle to look at with this card. But again, with caution, I wouldn't do it with Karn as well. Likely too good. So these two, so Balustrade Spy, and what's the other dude? Undercity Informer. So I think these are maybe too good, maybe unbanned with caution. They got played in a dredge deck. Basically, you're playing Oops All Spells, which is a legacy deck. All your cards in your deck, kind of like the historic Belcher combo, are the module dual face and DFC lands from Zendikar. So you're playing lands, but not playing lands. So when you play one of these, you basically flip all your deck. You're playing Silver Smoke Ghoul. You're playing kind of the Dredge package. and you play 2 World Spine Worms to shuffle them back so you don't mill out. So you kind of flip your deck, get a whole bunch of creatures into play for free, prized amalgam, stuff like that, and then you just kind of kill them the next turn. Might be kind of fair. You can kind of target them with like Graveyard Hate at the time, which might be sufficient enough. I didn't play this deck, or didn't play Pioneer when this deck was kind of rampant, so I'd welcome your thoughts, YouTube, on if you think this one can be bumped up or it's appropriately placed. The fetch lands. So I have Bloodstained Mire here, but any of the 5 fetch lands, I think keeping them out of the format is the right move. If you look at Modern, a lot of the decks just revolve into multicolor. With the triomes, it's very easy to enable it. I think without fetches, it does create some distinction between the formats, and it doesn't just become like good color soup, which oftentimes it does kind of end up. I think I would put it likely too good. It'll be interesting to see. They're going to come out with their decision next week with the fetches coming in cons, if they're going to be legal in Historic. So that's another interesting angle, where in Historic they do have Blood Moon as another kind of 8 piece that they could introduce as to maybe counteract that. Once Upon a Time, likely too good as well. This is a card that basically says your deck plays 56 cards. Helps you kind of skimp on lands or find you spells. It's a free cast. Pretty much an auto include. Probably too good. Underworld Breach, again, probably too good from like a combo perspective. It's not being played necessarily fairly in most cases, so I would probably lean against it. Like it might be okay with caution, but I think probably too good. Winota, I think, is likely too good as well. The reason, and it's kind of moving away, is removal check gameplay. And it'll be interesting to see, like, it seems like Discover will be banned to some extent. What happens with Greasefang, where you're constantly in a state of, can I tap out? Do I need to have instant speed removal or do I lose? Winota also limits the design space for future human cards, just being that anything that gets printed has to consider, like, does this break Winota further? So I think we've seen it a couple times in formats. It's come out and it's just been really oppressive. Veil of Summer, I think, again, probably too good. While having like protection is nice, the uncounterable oftentimes will just lead to kind of silence style effects where you can just use it as like a combo enabler. I think it's too good. Likely too good. Maybe going up, but like more often than not, you're not going to use it to necessarily protect your creature 1-for-1. You're going to use it for like some busted stuff. The do not unban. So Lurrus, I don't think Lurrus should be unbanned. Seen bans pretty much everywhere. The thing is with Lurrus, it kind of reads ban every card that's 3 CMC, every permanent 3 CMC or more. Because the question is always like, how is this better than just playing Lurrus? So a lot of the piles end up just becoming Lurrus piles. We see a bunch of different Lurrus decks in Historic. The Ninjas deck, the various artifact decks, the human decks. Like there's so many good 3 CMC humans, but oftentimes they'll be played as a Lurrus shell. So all things to kind of consider there. Nexus of Fate and Wilderness Reclamation. I don't ever want to play against these cards again. These were probably the most miserable play experience I've ever played against. The games are long, they're drawn out, they're non-deterministic necessarily. There is potential, like they're highly unlikely once they get the loop going to whiff, but there is the potential, so you have to wait and play it out. And it's really just like one person playing. Like I think it's very similar to like the Lotus Field deck, but I think even Lotus Field can probably close out faster than the Nexus decks. I remember when Pioneer first came out, like just sitting there watching my opponent in 2019. I was on Field of the Dead and just watching them kind of, shuffle their deck, and just being like, this is, or I wasn't even Field, those Fires I mentioned, Fires Walkers, and it was just so boring to watch. Oko, one of the best Planeswalkers ever printed. Very, very difficult to deal with. I don't think it should be included. Takes over games on its own. Toughness is too high. Doesn't get hit by a lot of the common like anti-blue, anti-white uncounterable spells, in the sense that it doesn't kill it on the spot. Fry doesn't hit it. Rending Volley doesn't hit it. There is stuff like Get Lost or Shieldred's Edict, but I think in itself, it's too good on its own. Teferi 3, very toxic kind of card, really stifles gameplay, makes it very boring, and just kind of shuts off incidental cool interactions. And then lastly, I think Uro is too good. Maybe could go likely too good, but it takes over games on its own. It's life gain, card advantage, win condition, ramp, all in one. I remember in Eldraine just like trying to play creature decks into it. Just felt really bad where, they're gaining 3-6 life a turn, and you're just there like, well, my creatures can't do anything. They've gotten ahead on mana, and they've gone through their deck, and it just keeps coming back over and over again. So that's kind of my thoughts on the tier list. Let me know if you agree, disagree, what you think will most likely be unbanned on Monday, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.